was a rejection of Donald Trump's personality, because that's what it came down to. The man increased his percentage of vote in every category, except for one. Every major demo except for one. He increased his vote among black men and women, increased his vote among Asian men and women, Hispanic men and women, white women. The only area that he decreased in, white men. Now, what the Democrats did this time is they used the coronavirus as an excuse to relax rules, to get people to look the other way, to get virtually anybody who could fog up a mirror, as I've said 100 times, to vote. Now, why does that benefit Democrats? Think about it. The average person you know who doesn't give a rip about voting, is that person a Republican likely or a Democrat likely if he or she were forced to vote? Other people you know who don't vote. Don't know people who don't vote? Well, some people know people who don't vote. I'm just telling you that the stats show the people who don't vote or seldom vote, there's a real category called never voters or seldom voters. There's an 18-point advantage for Democrats in that category. So if the idea is to scare up every human being who could possibly vote, presumably those who are eligible, that's another issue, then your Democrats are going to have an advantage. So how do we win that battle going forward, especially when we have a Congress and a president that wants to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states so they get 4 more Republicans, senators, especially when you have a Congress and a president that wants a pathway to citizenship. So we get 22 more million illegal aliens. It's not 11. It's probably double that. Illegal aliens on the pathway to vote. Some of them are going to vote. The lion's share of those who vote are going to be Democrats. How do you win? First of all, you have to stop all that stuff. But before that, here's what's going to happen. Already, you're seeing Joe Biden being tested by the Iranians. We pulled out of the deal. They didn't pull out of the deal, by the way. They stayed in the deal. They kept violating it. And now they're telling Joe Biden the only way we will care if you come back into the deal is if you relieve the sanctions. Outside of that, stay out of the deal. So they're not even asking us to come back into the deal unless we relinquish the sanctions, which is why they wanted to do a deal in the first place. So Biden is already being played. You're already seeing pressure on the border. Now, what's going to happen, of course, is he's got the media in his pocket. So when the economy comes back, and it will, because of the Operation Warp Speed, because the number one impediment to the growth of the economy, of course, is the coronavirus. That goes, the economy is going to soar. And the media will give Joe Biden credit for it, just as the media are not giving Operation Warp Speed credit for the development of the J&J vaccine. So that's going to be a huge hurdle. What it means is it's up to us to persuade the persuadables, 10 to 15%, that what Biden is doing is hurting the economy, hurting the country relative to what Trump was doing and would be doing if we had a different leadership. $15 minimum wage, probably not going to happen, at least I hope it doesn't. You have at least 2 senators from low-cost states where this would be devastating who don't want it. That's probably enough to prevent it from going to 15. But these kinds of things damage the economy, and we have to explain that to the persuadable. I've told you before, Ronald Reagan inherited an economy that was worse by many measures than the so-called Great Recession. Inflation was worse. Interest rates were worse. Unemployment was worse. In 8 years, never signed a minimum wage hike. 8 years, never had a stimulus plan. His stimulus plan was to lower taxes, lower regulations, and slow down the rate of domestic spending. It still increased, but not quite at the same rate, except for defense. That's what he did. And I tried to explain to my friend Tavis Smiley that Hispanic unemployment fell faster than did white unemployment. Black unemployment fell faster than did white unemployment, and so forth. He still didn't seem to believe it. So it's up to us to persuade that persuadable.